Hello, Serious Survivor here. How's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing okay. It's been a really, really crazy day. I'm sure that everybody's been watching the same things that I've been watching. I actually took half the day off from work so that I could record some of this footage. There's a lot of interesting, I don't want to say interesting, there's a lot of crazy things to talk about here. The White House, or the Capitol, I should say, being stormed like it was, is a pretty serious thing. What we saw to begin with was a very large protest of probably about 100,000 people, in the Capitol. And when the Capitol, in the beginning, we watched it. I'm sure y'all watched it just like I did for the most of the day. Most of it was peaceful, but during the course of the day, I like to watch a lot of the alternative, I guess you would call it, media, not necessarily just the mainstream. Because as I watched the mainstream media, I quickly switched to some of the other sources of media because of the type of coverage we were getting on it. The type of coverage, like, for example, the woman that was shot today passed away shortly after she was taken to the hospital, and that hasn't even been made. It hasn't even been made public on some of the networks yet. And I've got that actual footage. I've got the actual footage. I'm not going to be able to put it on YouTube here. I'm sure of that, but I've got a lot of interesting footage along with that. There was a gentleman that witnessed the act. He's a reporter. He's a freelance reporter. He runs his own website, and I'll have some more details about him hopefully later. And that's he's got a really interesting interview, an interview that everybody needs to hear because he was right there during the beginning of it all. And one of the most interesting things that he said, or one of the things that really caught my attention, was as we watched this protest begin, I was watching it on I have multiple screens on my computer. So I've got several computers and a lot of screens. So I was watching multiple stations, I should say, at one time. And when I watched the CNN, for example, the labeling of it, it was automatically rioting in the beginning when there was no violence. And as these protesters began to move inside of the Capitol building, the police actually let them in to begin with. Then they started breaking windows, and that's true. They started breaking some windows, and things got a little crazy like that. And this woman, the footage is a little disturbing. It will be for some people. I'm going to put it on my website, SeriousSurvivor.com. I've got multiple hours of footage that I actually recorded the screens. I'm not going to be able to put it on here, and it's going to take me several hours just to cut out the commercials and things like that. So it'll be on sometime tomorrow, and I'll make sure that, I'll put a link here on the channel in the community tab sometime tomorrow when I get that up on my website. But I'll describe what happened. I'll describe what I saw from the footage from the reporter that was following the group around that entered into the Capitol building. We know that they had barricaded some of the doors inside. Now, none of these protesters were armed, by the way. There were reports that some explosive devices were found. One explosive device was found somewhere. Those reports are unconfirmed, really, as far as any true confirmation on that. So I'm just putting it out there, what I've seen so far. Some of it has truly happened. Some of it may be just speculation still. And over the next few days, we'll probably hear a little bit more about that. But I saw the footage of this woman, and she basically was starting to climb through a doorway window that had a barricade, and she was obviously unarmed. And then suddenly a shot rang out, and she was hit directly in the throat, fell back, and she looked like she died on the scene from the footage. But they did carry her to a hospital, and she died a little bit later on. Some of the media is not even reporting that yet, but the fact is, according to what I've seen and the reports that I've read on multiple sources, that this woman has passed away. I was looking at the comments a little earlier, and there's a couple of comments I would definitely like to address. And I don't remember who wrote this comment. I'm not going to scroll all the way up and see, but it was something to the effect of, what did the Trump supporters think they were doing there? I'll tell you what they think they were doing. They were doing exactly the same thing, to a less degree, that we've seen over the past year. I mean, we've watched on TV for a year now, cities burn. We watch people be murdered in the streets. We watch police, law enforcement officers be attacked by the left and nothing be done about it. So why can't you climb through a window? We've seen entire parts of cities taken over and the police back down. We've seen rioting everywhere, damage to property that we can't even describe. It's billions of dollars, and the police back down. But suddenly, when there's a Republican demonstration and it did get out of hand, there's no doubt. But when it gets a little out of hand, they're using rubber bullets, which they didn't use in the majority of these other protests. They're using tear gas. There was another gentleman today, an older man, I think he was 63 years old. I don't want to say any names or anything right now until these details come out. But he was in the middle of a tear gas. 25 tear gas canisters landed in his close proximity, and he died of a heart attack on the scene from that. So there's a lot of aggression from the police. I have the footage to show on my website tomorrow about this. And when I watch this one protest and I see this aggression from the police that we did not see over the last year towards Antifa and towards violent rioters that were literally burning cities and attacking people at random, we saw nothing but the police walk backwards. But today they walk forward and they killed 2 people. And that's what the right thought they were doing today. They thought they had the right to protest just like anybody else, but obviously they don't. Because over the last year, how much damage have we seen? Think about it. Can you even give me the number of riots that occurred in the last year? It's in the hundreds, in hundreds of cities nationwide, almost every night, especially through the summer. Billions of dollars of property damage, multiple lives lost. And this is just, this shows us exactly where we stand as a nation. This shows us how divided we are as a nation. It's because when one side can do what they're doing and get away with it, and another side does the same thing, but not even to the extent that the left had done, and people are shot and killed, and another one killed with tear gas. And tear gas, there's been tear gas and CS gas are the most common gas used by law enforcement agencies, and there have been multiple deaths over the years accounted to, because of these. These are dangerous if you're too close to them, or if you have health conditions, they can kill you. And today was an example of that. So the police were using a lot of force today. There's a lot of videos that show that. And I'm all for keeping the peace. I don't want a war no more than anyone else does. I don't want any fight. I don't want anything like that. But today was a pretty serious day, and it showed us a lot about this nation. What we saw was President Trump this morning. He gave a speech, and almost simultaneously, the Mike Pence, the vice president, went on Twitter posted a video that said that he wasn't going to be able to support Trump. He didn't have the power. He didn't think he had the power, and he said that it would be up to Mitch McConnell. And Mitch McConnell said he was not going to support this, emergency audit either. So it basically is leaving Trump out on an island up there on his own. So today has been a really crazy day. A couple days ago, I said I was going to post a video tonight, and we're going to talk about the audit, if it was going to be or if it's not. Well, we don't know at this point. I wanted to talk about the elections that happened yesterday, but so much has dominated the news today. We see how those elections turned out, and Georgia went blue the way that some of us had suspected. And it's at the point to where, it's hard to wrap your head around what can we do next. Every avenue that people have wanted to take. The rug's been pulled out from under us. And I'm pretty upset right now. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm pretty upset about what's been going on. The reporter, and then these videos that I will post tomorrow, and I really urge everybody to look at them. Serious Survivor is a free site. I'm not trying to make any money off of you on that site. I'm just saying, go check this video out, because you need to hear this guy's account. This reporter was at all of the major protests all year long this past year. He was in Portland. He was in Seattle. And one of the most bothersome things about what he was saying was that he said and this is his word, so I'm just taking him at it for right now, but it does make sense. He said that a lot of people that were leading the charge into the Capitol building today were the same people he saw leading the charge at the Antifa riots in Portland and in Seattle. He said that he recognizes the people and he's got the footage to prove it. And I will have links to his website in that video tomorrow so that you can check this out. And that makes a lot of sense too. You know, maybe it was some, you know, people from the right that were just really pissed off. I mean, there's a lot of people in this nation that are pretty mad right now. We watched an election be taken away when it shouldn't have been. We watched it go the opposite direction of what it should have. We watched actual video evidence be thrown out of court. Thousands of sworn testimonies from people that were tallying the votes be thrown out of court. We have a state, I believe it's Wisconsin, I might be wrong, but I think it was Wisconsin, that said they support the recertification, the emergency audit, because there were some problems there. We have a lot of things going on right now, but every piece of evidence that's brought forward is thrown out. Every time we make a stand legally, it's pushed aside. I mean, it's pretty much martial law in Washington, D.C. right now. Everything's shut down. All of the protesters were told to be off the streets by 6 o'clock. And that's why I started this live stream at 6:10. I wanted to watch a little bit and see if they were going to, you know, leave. And most of them did leave. And that's what we see consistently with the Trump protests, is when the Trump supporters come out and protest, normally this is the first time we've really seen this kind of violence. And it really wasn't that much violence other than some broken windows and maybe trespassing, because if it's not that big of a deal to take over a police station, then why is it a big deal to go into the Capitol building? I mean, that's our property. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it. Okay. I think it may be a little extreme, but I am saying that the National Guard was out within 4 hours? They were dispatched within 4 hours of this. We watched Seattle go on for how long? We watched the riots in Portland go on for how long, and all these other riots. And the National Guard, when they were called out to D.C. last time, what happens? The mayor sends them out. They canceled all their hotel bookings. They couldn't even stay in a hotel. So she basically kicked them out. But now she's calling for them to be in there. And that shows us right there, when the cities are actually burning, when people are actually being murdered in the streets, then mayors like this will not allow the National Guard in to come and keep the peace. But suddenly when Trump supporters are in front of the Capitol, then, oh, we need the National Guard now. And the only people injured today, I believe one police officer was injured. But other than that, 2 Trump supporters were killed and multiple others injured. And reports will confirm this. For you guys watch my channel, you know I'm not just BSing you. I don't just make these numbers up. They're showing us where they stand. And more importantly, they're showing us where we stand with them. And we may have been quiet for too long. This is, it's really it's past the point to where it's obvious how one-sided that our government is now becoming. Because what we're seeing now is the blue Senate, a blue Senate, a blue House, and a blue president. And it's honestly, I'm not even in support of a red House, red Senate, and red president. I don't think one side should ever rule the entire nation like that, because it causes at least, you know, just too much open to be done. There should be some type of division there. It should be equally balanced between people. But right now, with the types of things that they've been doing and they've been talking about, now they're in total control, 100% control of the government. Even though the Senate is technically 50-50, then the vice president is the tiebreaker on that. And the vice president is what will most likely be Kamala Harris, who is blue. So we know which way that's going to go. So it's, it's just one of them days to where I would have loved to have sit down and scripted something out for this live stream, but I'm just sort of talking from the hip there, shooting from the hip, because I've been watching this all day. And some of the footage I've seen, especially on the alternative media, you're not going to see this. This footage I'm going to post tomorrow, you're not going to see this on CNN. You're not going to see it on Fox News. You're not going to see it on anywhere like that. And it's going to disturb you, because what you're going to see are police attacking Trump supporters. You're going to see people like one Trump supporter come forward, which from what this reporter in his report says is actually an Antifa instigator, basically, that's just there to start trouble. And then the supporters are actually attacked by the police. And there's footage of that, and you'll see it tomorrow. And it just shows us where we're headed. I mean, it shows us where we're headed. Yeah, the DC mayor declared 6 p.m. curfew. So everybody is basically, locked down pretty much at 6 p.m. except for the press. The press is allowed to be out. Now, I'm not currently watching the news right this minute, but it makes you wonder what would happen if Antifa comes out after 6. Would they be faced with the same, the same resistance that the Trump supporters were faced with today? Also in Georgia and Kansas, there were protests at the state capitals of both of those states today. This is it's getting serious, and it's getting to the point that, what can we do? I mean, I hate to say that, but is it going to do any good, or is it going to do any good to vote this time around? I mean, we see that doesn't work. I mean, they prove it to us. Is it going to do any good to protest? Because hell, we might get shot. Is it going to do any good to speak our opinions? Because when we speak our opinions online, then we get kicked offline before long. We see that all the time. We see all of that happen. But if I spoke out against Trump supporters, then my videos would probably get 10 million views, or anybody that does speak out against them gets all those. And it's not about views for me, but it's about the truth. It's about America, and it's about us having the freedoms that we have fought for, that we pay tons of taxes for, and that we're guaranteed by a government that our forefathers built. But these freedoms are being taken away, and every freedom that gets taken away, every little thing that gets taken away, it's not coming back unless we fight for it. It's not coming back. All right. I want to talk, look at some questions real quick. If anybody has any questions about some of the stuff that's been going on today, because I've been watching a lot of it today. Yeah. Michigan had a protest today too. And I don't think it was a very large one, especially after the last time that there was a protest in Michigan when people actually came armed and went into the chambers there at the State House. Yeah. The New World Order. We're seeing it. We're seeing it come into effect right before our eyes. We've heard about it many, many times. And now with this nation, I mean, I would love to say that I think Trump is going to be, president at the end of the month, but I'm just going to be realistic. I don't see it. I don't see it happening without something drastic taking place. I really don't see it happening. But when this nation turns entirely blue, I mean, look at the years with Obama and Biden, and how friendly we were and how far we pulled back from helping the countries that were our allies. We basically turned our backs on our allies and began turning towards our enemies and giving concessions to our enemies. And I don't want to call China an enemy, but economically, China's our enemy. I mean, they're surpassed us now, basically, and they're gonna push us even further back with Biden and with a blue Congress, because what we're gonna see are our jobs going over there again. We're going to see our jobs going over there. I haven't heard about any protest in Florida, there, Ghost Rider. And these days, and that's the problem with it these days, is it's really hard to get the real news. I had to dig, it was my son that told me that he heard there were protests in Georgia and in Kansas. And I started looking at all the mainstream sites, no mention at all of it. I had to actually dig pretty deep to find out anything on these protests. So they're intentionally hiding this information from us, because they don't want us to know how many people that we really got on our side. I mean, if you think about it, 74 million people voted for Trump this last time. And they say, well, 80 million, let's just say 80 million voted for Biden. That's not even half the population of the United States. The United States is 350 million people. So even if you divide it at those odds, then we know we got half the nation that supports what we're saying right now. We got half the nation that believes, in a true democracy and freedom, the freedoms to make our own choices, the freedoms to run our own businesses, the freedoms to live our life the way we want without being oppressed and controlled by government entities. When you watch this tonight, when I watch this footage tonight, and you'll see some of the footage tomorrow, like I said, it really made me think about things like, for so long we've been hearing back the blue, and then we hear defund the police on the other side. And, it makes a man sort of torn right now. And what I mean is, to back the blue, I got to see them doing the same thing to everybody. And what I mean is, we watched, like we said, I've said many times, we watched our cities burn while they stood there and watched. Now, I know it was the governors or the mayors of those cities that told them to do so. But tonight I watched them I can't count the number of tear gas I saw go off. They were firing rubber bullets, and they were hitting people with rubber bullets. They've even killed 2 people tonight, and multiple other people injured, multiple places. And there's a lot of footage that just shows blood all over the ground. It was a lot more violent than any of the mainstream media is showing right now. And how do you back that when you're going to act like that towards me, but you're not going to act like that towards the ones who are burning shit down? So I don't know. I guess maybe we got to reevaluate our priorities. Looking at both sides of it. If they defund the police, then at least we can stand up for ourselves and don't have to worry about prosecution of any type. Not that I really agree with that, and we need law enforcement. But it's getting really difficult. It's getting really difficult to remain quiet and to remain inactive about this, because they're forcing our hand. We basically have a choice at this point. We either take it, or we push back harder than we've ever pushed back since 1776. So this is a choice that we're all going to have to really think about. This is something that we're all going to have to really, get our perspectives in order, because for a lot of people, this coming up year, you're going to lose your job, whether it be to more strict COVID lockdowns, whether it be to your job going to China. It's going to happen. I may be one of those. A lot of people are going to be forced to take a vaccine. And those that don't take a vaccine, even though, we don't believe it right yet, but there's a very good chance we'll be in these COVID camps that they're talking about. Those camps, as just touching on that bill real quick, that New York bill A416, it's in front of the health committee right now. It'll go for a vote as soon as it's approved through there. So it didn't go through the day. It might take a little while. Hopefully it'll still get shot down, but after today, I'm not really sure. It would make more sense for it to go through with what I'm seeing at this point. And it's getting really, really crazy. I always survive. Today's the beginning. I told I was telling somebody today that, you might want to remember January 6th, 2021, because it could be the day one of the Second American Revolution. I mean, we just don't know yet. We just don't know. But okay. Wow, man, you can't really say that, Mr. Robbins. The Nazis and white supremacists are calling themselves patriots. No, I think patriots are calling themselves patriots. I don't know what Nazis or white supremacists call themselves. But most people that were out there today are patriots. They're not white supremacists. I mean, I think we're past all that BS. Yeah, Matt Gonzalez, stay safe and vigilant of your surroundings. That's very important, because today I think also made another statement. It made a statement that we don't so readily see. And that statement is basically that we are going to be basically prosecuted more. We are going to be shot. We are going to be held back more than the left when they protest. So, I mean, that's obvious. There's absolutely no denying that. If you compare this protest today to protests in the past that have, included violence in them, we'll see that the reaction to this protest today was much more swift and much more violent from the police. And now the National Guard are in the streets there. If I'm not mistaken, didn't the mayor of DC kick the National Guard out the last time they were there? And that's such a double standard. I mean, we all see that at this point in time. We all see that. And I hear you, Prepper Trucking. War. I mean, it's a war. It's a war for our freedoms. It's a war for our right, basically, to exist and to make choices for ourselves. We have a government now. We imagine how bad it's going to be once he does get into office. We're seeing this right now. And there was a comment, Biden, he came on and made a comment, made a little speech today. And this comment was basically, he was saying, it's time for the rule of law. We live in a country with the rule of law. Where were you at 6 months ago when your supporters were burning down this country, burning down these large cities? He didn't say a word. And now he's out there. We should unite as a country. We can't unite as a country because you've divided us too much. You've made sure of that. You and your party have made sure that the Republican Party is basically treated like outcast at this point. All right, Tissue. I'll give you that. Racists use patriot demonstrations as cover, like rioters were using BLM demonstrations, and that's probably true. I'm not going to say that every single person out there today was not a racist, because obviously some probably were, but I don't think that was the driving motivator behind today's protest. The driving motivator behind today's protest was the fact that we've watched, our rights be stripped away. You think about one of our most important rights that we have as American citizens, and that's the right to vote, the right to choose our leaders. When that right no longer works for us, then we basically have no say in what's going on with the government or with our own lives, because the government controls our lives. The government can pass laws, with a completely one-sided government, but they can pass any law they want. Absolutely any. And there's nothing we can do about that. So, there's going to be bad apples in every bunch. That's definitely true. That is definitely true. Fake election too in Serbia. So, Pecco, is that where you're from, Serbia? Yep, there's too much funny business going around. We're like I said the other night, we're teetering on the edge, and we may have even crossed the line. We're at the point with a nation that we really only have, one of two directions, and that's to be totally controlled or to get our freedom back. And that is the only two choices we have. There's no in between anymore. For those that, might think, well, it'll be okay. This will pass. We'll vote again in a couple of years and get a new Congress or whatever. It's just probably not going to work like that. Yep. The last time the Capitol was stormed was by the British in the War of 1812. So this is a monumental event. Today, when we watch this happen, and that was by the British. And at that point in time, we already had our independence. So now this is something that's going to go down in the history books. The real question is, how are the history books going to tell this story? And that all depends on what happens next. Biden in office, and if we just sit back and let it happen, then I think we can assume that the history books will paint a very dark picture about the people that stormed that building. I think that most of the people that were out there today were like, and, give credit to all the protests that happened over the course of last year. I'm going to say the majority, the high percentage of the people that were at those protests were not committing acts of violence. I'm not saying every single one was. There was a small percentage of them. And today there was a very small percentage of them. So it depends on how these next few months turned out as to how this will go down in history. I don't think it's going to go down the way it's looking right now. It's not going to go down very well. Arlene, yes, we live by the Bible and the Constitution. I do. I agree with you. Imagine if this happened in Texas, there would still be shooting. I hear you. I love Texas. Haven't been there in a long time. Brain dead New Yorker. Have you heard anything about that bill passing today? I've been looking at the news. That bill 416. You heard anything about it? Maybe you could give us a little information, because I was looking all over the place, but I can't find much on it. Do you think, Jay Davis, do you think Congress knows it's on notice now, or will they just double down? I think they will just double down. I think there are some people in Congress, of course, I'm not going to sit here and say that every politician in Congress is just, just bought and sold. I'm sure there are some there that, really care. Just like anywhere, nothing's ever 100%. There's never 100% of anything. So yeah, some there will really care, and they may see the truth in what's going on. But I think a lot of them will actually just continue the path they're continuing. They'll keep talking a game on TV, but when it comes time in there, to get something done, they're not going to get anything done for the American people. The only time they're going to get anything done is when it benefits them or their donors. That's when they're going to get something done. And, this is going to sound stupid, but what's it really matter if they stormed the Capitol building and interrupted the session today? Congress never gets anything done anyway, right? But no, I shouldn't joke about that. It's, it's pretty difficult. It's a pretty rough situation. I was watching it unfold, and I thought it was going to get worse. When they called the National Guard, and just so you know, it was not Trump that ordered the National Guard. It was Mike Pence, without Trump's knowledge, that ordered the National Guard troops to come out there tonight. When they called out the National Guard at 6, then I sort of expected, I really didn't know what to expect at that point. But I was watching, but at about 5:20, I started noticing most of the Trump supporters, started pulling back. So they're doing the right thing, because we don't want to confront the National Guard. Just because we don't. That's the National Guard, and that's not the objective of that protest. If we look at protests in the past, the National Guard weren't called out, and when the police were, nobody left when the curfew was. I mean, some did, but most didn't. So it's crazy. That's a good point, Matt. Don't let too many people know, what you've got. Because if they know what you got when a situation gets rough, then they're going to come and try and get it. Prepper Trucking. My question is, who's going to actually make a stand? Grab your gear and muster to a location. I agree with you 100%. There's too much talk. And it's getting pretty close to a time of action. I don't know exactly what that action is going to involve. But at this point in time, what other avenues do we have? And that's something that we really have to think about, is things may very well turn that way. If we look at things, I want to just look at some scenarios here. And if we look at a scenario, all right, we see that, not Pence, but we see that Biden is probably going to be in office, by the end of the month. Not because I want him to, but because he probably is. And the Democrats have won Georgia, which gives them basically control of our entire government at this point. How long do you think it'll be before bills like we see when the one in New York are going to start being passed? And how long do you think it'll be before mandatory vaccinations are going to be required, whether by the government or by employers? And when Pence has already talked about 100 days of mask wearing once he gets in office, which, they use that as a, make it sound okay. But this mask wearing is going to include a lot of other things with it. And I think that's going to include a lot of the shutdowns that we've seen to be continued. And this is going to have, a devastating effect on our economy. So we're at a pivotal turning point. And the problem is, here's the biggest problem, is we've been, just to put it bluntly, a lot of us have been, myself, I'm going to use myself as an example. I don't want to point any fingers, have been complacent. I've been living my life. I've been working my job. I've been, hanging with my family. And I've sort of had politics and this stuff on the back burner because, you just never really thought it was going to come to this degree. We always thought we'd be able to vote and change things because that was our right to vote and change things. But now we see voting doesn't work. I mean, it really doesn't work anymore. We vote and we feel like our vote doesn't count because there's so much evidence of other things going on, subjects I can't get into on videos here, but y'all know what I'm talking about there. And the problem is, where I was going with that is, the problem is the Democrat Party that is taking over our government knows exactly what their plan is. They know exactly what they want to accomplish, and they've got it laid out exactly how they're going to get there. And the bad news about this is they're probably 75 to maybe 90% of the way there. They now have control of our nation. And we're left powerless in the political arena. We have no power in the political arena whatsoever right now. None. We have no say in politics at this point. No say. And it's not gonna get any better. The QCAT, anyone in SC, brother, that's where I'm from. And I'm in Michigan right now, but upstate SC, Oconee County. But that's the problem that we face, is because from what I see, we don't have a plan. We don't have a plan of action. We're not even united. Republicans aren't even united the way the Democratic Party is united. I'll give them that much credit. They're united, and they have a plan. They're enacting that plan, and we are the ones being impacted by it. And it's impacting us in a negative way because the plan is, for them, is basically dominating or ruling our country. And for us, we have lived, I know myself, like I say, I use myself. We've lived a long time, I've lived a long time just assuming that my vote counts, that I could go to the city council meetings, that I could go to the county council meetings, that I could make a difference. And in the end, I see that none of that has ever mattered. None of it has ever mattered because they are exactly where they want to be, in total control at a pivotal time in our nation. And if we don't come up with a plan, if we don't come up with a course of action, and if we don't become cohesive, we're going to fall. And we're going to be the victims here. We'll be the ones in the COVID camps. We'll be the ones that our families are separated. And it's going to get worse than that. Jim Ottinger, I agree with you because of the interviews I saw today. Antifa crisis actors were in the Capitol. Smoke and mirrors are being used by the media. Even Fox News has went to the dark side. Yes, I agree with every one of those statements. The gentleman whose interview I watched earlier, he was a younger guy. I'm going to say he's in his early 20s. Maybe he might have been 30 at the most. But this guy is clearly distraught in this interview. Well, not terribly bad, but I mean, he's visibly upset. But he says, he swears by the fact, and he says he's got footage of the same Antifa members from Portland and from Seattle that were there leading the charge into the Capitol today. So unless these Antifa members suddenly had a change of heart and decided to become Republican and lead a charge in there, then this is a false flag, if you want to use that term. Yeah, people do keep falling for it. And Webster, you're right. A nation divided will not stand. How far away do you really think that a foreign invasion would be if we continue on the path that we continue on? And I don't even think it'll really be a military invasion. It'll be a slow invasion with a completely blue government that is so friendly to CHINCOM, China Communist, is so friendly with them. It's just a matter of time before their troops are going to starting to be stationed, which some of them already are stationed here, and that we're going to be indebted to China, and they're going to use China and the UN to help control these COVID camps, because at some point in time they may they may realize that the U.S. military is not going to do this for too long. They may do it right away because they're ordered to, but there would probably be a change of heart because there are too many patriots in the military to enslave American people. So I think they would quickly be replaced with troops. Yeah, the woman that was shot, Keisha, that was some, I hate to say I'm putting that footage up tomorrow because, it's disturbing footage and it'll probably get took down pretty quick. So as soon as I put up the link on the channel here, if you want to see it, go see it. But I'm going to put it, I decided I'm going to put it up in 2 videos. I'm going to put that footage up that shows the actual shooting from the police officer. And then the rest of the footage, that's the interview with the man that shot the footage. And what's disturbing about, I've been in combat, but what's disturbing about it is she's just an unarmed woman that was shot by a police officer, and she was presenting no threat. Yes, she was climbing through a window, but in no way threatening. And the last time I checked, I'm not even allowed to shoot a criminal coming into my home through the window. I have to wait until he's in the home and he's a threat to me. If I shoot somebody climbing in my window, I'm in prison. But I guarantee you, this police officer would never serve any time. I got you, Prepper. Thank you. I will. Yeah, Arliss, China is sitting back, loving this. Some of the foreign headlines today, I was looking at over the internet, some of the foreign headlines today, basically we're talking about the U.S. Capitol is occupied. The U.S. Capitol is under siege. And, when did you ever think you would hear those, those words from a foreign news outlet? Oh, Jay Davis, she got pictures of the cop on the other side of the door. Yeah, and she was unarmed. She was completely unarmed. She had a hat on, a Trump flag on her back, a T-shirt, and a pair of jeans. There were no weapons anywhere. And she was shot in the neck. I mean, it's, and we see all these other riots for people getting shot. And, I understand a lot. I'm not making light of anything, but I'm saying